Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie, and today I'm bringing you an ad hoc discussion around the swirling rumors, first reported by Reuters, that Alphabet, Google's parent company, has drafted in advisors as it mulls over a possible bid for the CRM software giant HubSpot. Now, a possible bid would likely be Alphabet's largest acquisition ever, given HubSpot's current market cap at the time of filming of $33.95 billion. Yet Google does already have the funds freed up, with Alphabet reporting a cash pile of over $110 billion at the end of 2023. So could this be a real possibility? To help me navigate that question and this huge news, I'm delighted to be joined today by Liz Miller, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, and Rebecca Wetteman, CEO and Principal Analyst at Valoir. So thanks very much for joining me both. And Liz, I might start with you on this to get kind of your first reaction to the news.
It was one of these. Honestly, I heard the news and I just went, oh God, kids, what are we doing? I think that from the perspective of, is this an interesting conversation for Google to not just have and to bring advisors in to kind of look at, in the realm of, we've got a giant pile of cash. How do we burn it? Very interesting question to figure out how we, what match and what part of the pile do we burn first? So very interesting that this is the motion that Google is in. And I think it speaks a lot to kind of where their solvency is. And really, quite frankly, it also speaks to how healthy their advertising business is. I mean, 80% of their revenue is from advertising. So I think that speaks a lot to that. But I think that exact issue is also the biggest problem with this rumor, right? 80% of your revenue is tied up in advertising. And 100% of the current court cases and regulatory lenses focused on you as a company are squarely looking at data and your advertising revenue. So I think that there are a lot of issues with the deal itself that make me question whether the deal is truly viable. I mean, you can write a deal up. HubSpot can take a look at it. It's a great deal for HubSpot. They have built a really solid company that lots of people are looking at. But I think that the regulatory issue becomes the biggest one for me, because this really is a deal that, if regulators couldn't figure out that Figma was not in fact a direct competitor to Photoshop, what's this going to do? What questions is this going to bring up? Because if you are the entity that controls and according to regulatory and court findings and lots of lawsuits that are flying around, that you control how inbound traffic of specific brands gets through the Google black box, and now you control the actual platform that gets access to that inbound traffic from search, from advertising, from networks, you're literally controlling, and some would argue without the highest degree of ethics or transparency, the entirety of that process. And that becomes a little bit concerning. I think from a technical standpoint, I mean, let's all cheer workflows. They'd be great on Google Cloud. That would be awesome. Clients would definitely benefit from HubSpot running fully on that combined cloud system. But I don't think that's the 80% of the business we're looking at, right? That's 10% of the business we're looking at. I think it's the advertising part.
Liz, you're absolutely right. I mean, if buying search engine optimization isn't anti-competitive, I don't know what is, right?
Assuming that it's built into your contract. I mean,
yeah. But the bigger question for me here, the regulatory thing is one thing, but the question is, even if Google could pull this off, could it successfully execute on it? You have to figure they've had 3 at-bats now with the Salesforce partnership. The AWS Salesforce partnership is now taken off, and AWS is selling Salesforce on the AWS marketplace, even with Thomas Kurian in place for 4 years, 5 years now. Google still has that Silicon Valley ADHD, I'm going to be a really cool tech company and not really sell to businesses effectively. And certainly Thomas has made a headway there, but there are an awful lot of enterprises that still don't trust Google. And are they going to trust them with their sales and marketing business, particularly if they're tech companies that may be competing with Google? Boy, I don't know about that, even if the acquisition were to go through.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Rebecca. That your point there makes me kind of think back a couple of years ago when Meta tried to enter the CRM space a little bit.
Oh, cute, right? With customer,
yeah.
So sweet. That was cute.
And that didn't really go well. I think they bought Customer for kind of $1 billion and sold it for $250 million. Obviously, this is a much bigger company, HubSpot, that we're talking about. But do you think Google is maybe set up for better success than Meta, or it's a completely different ballgame?
I would say before Thomas Kurian, I would have said absolutely not. With Thomas there now, I think there's sort of an adult at the wheel, so to speak. So there's potential there. The question is, how much has the Google sort of mindset shifted towards serving enterprise customers and building the trust of enterprise customers? Because with enterprise customers, you can't just say, you have to trust us because we're smarter than you are. You have to build that trust. And that's something that Google has not historically had a great track record of doing, nor has it had a great track record of executing on its plans for building out roadmaps for enterprise products. And business buyers want to know that whatever roadmap they're told is going to happen is going to happen. And it's not going to suddenly shift because the head of product marketing or product management decides they'd rather work at YouTube for a while.
And I think there's another issue, and Rebecca has said the word, and this is more specific to HubSpot than it is to Google, and that's enterprise. We have to remember that HubSpot historically has been ideal for the mid-market. In fact, time and time again, they come back to us analysts and say, yes, enterprises use us and they use us effectively, but we are a mid-market, if not a small to mid-market business. We are ideal. That is our sweet spot. That is where we focus our innovation. And you know what? They've done a really good job capitalizing on a market that a lot of other companies tend to abandon when a big flashy logo joins kind of their enterprise sales group. I mean, think of how many SMB solutions in this CRM kind of CX automation space have, their heads have turned. They're like, we're an SMB solution. We love the mid-market. And then all of a sudden, Coca-Cola buys a seat. They're like, ooh, enterprise. Like they sweep off to the right. And HubSpot has not done that, and admirably so. They support their enterprise customers, but that's also why enterprise customers who use them to fill in the gaps that their other larger solutions can't really quite reach is so valuable to them. Is that something that enterprise customers are going to want to give up? Is that something that mid-market is going to want to give up? Because mid-market and small business are not necessarily Google's bread and butter when it comes to search, when it comes to advertising. Now, it fills a really interesting market for Google advertising and for Google search, that you now have access to a very large customer base in that SMB sweet spot. But are you going to change your pricing models? Are you going to change your business practices to make things more attractive to that market? So I think there are a lot of questions about what happens to the HubSpot customer when they kind of come into this Google space. My bigger question here, and it's a little bit of palace intrigue, is why? Why did this announcement get leaked? Why did this rumor, right? It's a little bit like, get my tinfoil hat. I'm going to get my tinfoil hat out and sit outside with the eclipse kids for a second. But why? Why did this happen? And I think a lot of this is lots of people are sniffing around HubSpot. HubSpot is a very healthy company, and they have an incredibly loyal, incredibly healthy customer base. They have proven time and again that they are able to innovate across all three core pillars of customer experience delivery and automation, not just CRM, but also their marketing, their sales, their service solutions. Are they a big, massive platform? No, but they're really solid with their belief that, hey, this inbound motion and managing how this becomes automated and the workflows across it, they're super solid in where they are great. So a lot of people have been interested in HubSpot for a really, really long time. So my question is, who's Google trying to head off? right? Who's like, because this really felt like oh my, did we let someone know that we were thinking about a term sheet? Like, it felt like one of those announcements, and I was like, I'm going to mold my tinfoil hat just a little bit more because I want to know why. I want to know who Google is looking out in the market for and saying, I'm going to head off whatever it is you're thinking of doing. Because it's a good deal. It's an interesting deal. I don't think it's a deal that would ever get through regulators. So why?
And is it Google looking at the AWS Salesforce deal saying, I couldn't make it work with Salesforce, but it was me, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm the problem. Yeah.
Me. So let's not let another great opportunity pass me by when I have the cash to try to do it.
And it's also interesting when you think of who else might be out there for a buy, right? I mean, HubSpot certainly, but if you're not going to look at HubSpot, do you look at someone like a Sugar? Does Sugar become someone that's like if we can't make HubSpot work, does Sugar, who really sits in kind of the same space and place, does that become an interesting acquisition idea for someone out there?
And is it engineering first?
Yes. So I think that I think it's an interesting daydream, but I think it also opens the door to a lot of other players out there that very well might be looking at this and saying, now, but Charlie, and you brought this up, Meta tried going down this path adorably with the customer acquisition. But I think the difference here is that from moment one, literally from the press release announcing the intent to buy, there was very little direction and very little strategic vision around where customer would fit into the overarching Meta conversation. It was literally like, it's CRM for commerce that doesn't really need CRM. You're like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Like, what just happened? Why are we, if you're saying that you're going to be a B2C small business first commerce platform, and this is where you're going to shine, why do we need a CRM for that? Like, that's weird. So there wasn't really a strategy there. And I also think there was a little bit of kind of not understanding where and how CRM is not the same. Like, not every CRM is the exact same. You can't just drop it in and hope to God it takes. But not everything in the CX ecosystem is CRM. And I think that's the even bigger challenge, is these large companies that are not native to this weird ecosystem in which Rebecca and I swim every day. If you don't realize that, hey, this might be a commerce automation workflow platform, and yes, it stores data in something called a database, and yes, there might be a record about your customer, you can't just slap a CRM sticker on it and hope to God it works. There's a lot of nuance in this overarching ecosystem that if Google does look at this isn't just a companion to your Docs platform.
And it's who the buyer is too, right? Is the Google buyer the buyer that's spending whatever they're spending now on Google Cloud services? No.
Yeah.
And it's
I'd argue it's not even the same customer in advertising. Right, because
the challenge that AWS had trying to sell enterprise apps, right? They recognize they need Salesforce because they don't have those sales, service, marketing buyers that recognize them as a brand. And it is a very different buying cycle. It's a very different decision process. It's a completely different floor of the building.
Oh, completely. And I would argue that these application buyers, this suite buyer, is not the same buyer that you're also working on the advertising side of the business, the SEO side of the business. Right. Those are your agencies. Those are your advertisers. Those are it's a completely different buyer. You're going to go suddenly into the CMO and you're going to spend this much money so you can have a conversation with a CMO. Really? It just doesn't, I don't know. I mean, it'd be cool. I'd still struggle. But then Rebecca and I would probably have to go to Google Cloud next year. And I don't know. Can we not? It's a really big show. Sarah did a great job, but it's a big show.
Yeah. lots of really great discussion, but I think maybe a final question I'd quite like to end this with. Obviously, Liz, you mentioned there that Google might have been doing this to potentially cut some of the off from making an effort to HubSpot potentially. Is there maybe another company that you could see making such a move for HubSpot? Is that something that you could maybe debate over? Put you on the spot.
Oh no, that's a good one. One that Google would like to cut off?
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I think when you have to put the spin on like who's Google going to want to cut off, it's going to be one of the major cloud players, right? At this point, they're not going to be like, darn it, Yahoo, we're coming for your search. Like, no, they're not thinking that. Like, there's no one on that side of the building that they're really worried about. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a play of like to flex and maybe like. If Google wanted to flex in front of someone, especially right before Google Cloud Next, like the week before Google Cloud Next, I would say the two players that come to my mind are Microsoft and Oracle.
Yeah.
But but again, I don't think that's so much of a head off. Like, oh, I don't want Larry Ellison to buy HubSpot is not a statement. It's just not like if Larry wanted to buy HubSpot, he would have bought HubSpot a long time ago. So I don't think that's a statement, but I think it's more of if they wanted to flex over how much cash they had, if they wanted to flex over how well the business is going, how much a strategist like Thomas Kurian could put into the innovation and R&D cycle of the Google Cloud business, those are the two I'd want to flex in front of.
That would be completely a Larry Ellison flex, right? Given
totally.
Thomas left Oracle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, so I kind of feel like but again, I don't think it's to head them off. I think it's like, look how good my business is, buddy. Like this got we have 100 billion just sitting here that I could light part of it on fire and still not care. Like that is one heck of a flex. But I also and Rebecca, I'm gonna ask. Sorry, Charlie, I'm taking your job. I'm gonna ask Rebecca a question. But does that feel like a Thomas Kurian flex? Because it kind of doesn't to me. Like he is one of those he's a solid leader. He's a great strategist. He's not necessarily flashy showboat guy. That also
feels like a Larry Ellison flex, not a Thomas Kurian flex.
Yeah, it does.
Excellent. I think it's also interesting that you did mention it came out the day before Google Next started as well, I think, and maybe there's something in that too, but we'll leave that to the tinfoil conspiracy theorists.
Right.
But yeah, I think that we discussed a lot, and I think maybe that's a great place to end today's chat, but always fascinating to speak with you both. So thanks very much for joining me.
You bet.
Thanks,
and also, thanks. And thanks to everybody for watching. Bye for now.